Lois, I swear this alcohol, that whole alcohol thing, that alcohol is going to be the death of you if you don't be careful. I swear. You ain't paying attention, sis. Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on the video. This is my review for Grotesquerie, Season 1, Episode 2. Okay, so here's the thing. Lois, this detective, she really does drink a lot. Like, she just constantly drinks. And it is a numbing factor for all that she has going on and just the job itself. So I get it. I get it. I understand the drinking, but she's not real focused because she's not paying a whole bunch of attention. Listen, that nun, I don't know. Something about the nun, just she don't sit right with me. She too in. She give me crazy. I don't know. She something. Anyway, we'll get to that. But let's talk about the dynamics in the home. So we kind of like roll back a little bit, Ryan Murphy style, roll back a little bit, and we get to actually see Courtney Vance come in, which is actually playing the husband. He's the husband of Lois. And this is before he ended up in this coma and all of this. So we got the daughter. The daughter literally has, she is an eating situation. She's gluttonous. She is gluttonous. She overeats, but it's really exaggerated. Like she's gluttonous. And she's not so much as, I don't want to say she's in denial because she knows that she overeats. Like, who sits down with a ham? Not a plate of ham that you've cut off the ham, which is still some fat shit. You know what I mean? But literally, she sat down with the ham and a knife. I said, this fat bitch. I said, girl, you is carrying me here now. A ham. You just sat down at the table with a ham and a knife. Not even a big knife, a knife. Like you was going to make a sandwich. And you just slice the pieces off, eating it, having casual conversation. That is fat shit. That's just gluttonous. But when it's spoken about, she don't want to hear it. You know, no matter what the context is, she really don't want to hear it. But in this house, they kind of fire things at each other. They real upfront with how they feel about stuff. She'll fire at her mother about the drinking. She'll fire at her about the eating. They just kind of like go back and forth. I'm like, y'all over here like y'all playing in dozens. Now, here's my thing with the father. I couldn't do him. I couldn't do him in no house because he was sitting up going around the room. He doing a roundhouse kick around the room. You going to get everybody together. He getting everybody together. Basically telling her she need to go on. He'd have picked her out a fat farm and told her she need to stop the drinking and this, that thing, and the other, on. And baby, listen. When I tell you Miss Lois took that thing, once the daughter got mad, put the ham away and went and sat down somewhere, and it was just the two of them, she got his ass so thoroughly together and let him know. She said, you know that job of mine you talking about? You got such a problem with me and my drinking and all that. I need a drink. See, because I have private investigators at my, and I had you followed. And I know you've been cheating. You busted. So while he was over here playing this holier than thou, doing a roundhouse kick on everybody in the house and what they need to do, he messed around and got boomeranged up in it. She told, baby, I done caught you cheating, and what your next step is to get out. Because it's my house. Get out. Out. Get out. And told him just as nice. You know, he says, I still love you sometimes. I still love you sometimes. I mean, and that's how his delivery was. It was really, his delivery was so cut, like he was just nasty with it. He wasn't even nice nasty. It was nasty with it. Like, let me tell you what I don't like about all y'all. That's basically how it came off. And he told her, I still love you sometimes. How can you tell somebody I still love you sometimes? I mean, that's honest, but that's like when you say painfully honest. And she fired right back and told him, yeah, and I sit around and I hope to get a phone call sometime telling me that you died. I said, no, that's my kind of shit. But that's painfully honest. And he had nerve to tell her, I hope you have no regrets I hope you have no regrets if that actually happens. Well, you didn't die, but you sure are messed up. And she did. She regretted it a little bit. She's standing back there. I probably wouldn't have regretted it, but because he wasn't nice. He wasn't nice. And then to be cheating, that's a whole nother situation of violation. I couldn't do him. So I get her stance more so now. And then this back and forth with this nurse at this hospital, I cannot. That nurse with them red heels is a mess. She still run around talking smack to her. Then they have a little run-in the hallway. They have their little back and forth. And Lois started taking her earrings. So she's like, why are you out here wasting these tears? Well, you should be in there giving them to him. This, that thing, steadily poking at her. And she started taking off her earrings. She said, what were you doing? She said, I'm going to go ahead and whoop your ass. I was like, get her, Lois. And then she was telling her, she's like, no, now. Because if you put your hands on me, you're going to be arrested. She said, but before they do that, the security is going to be here so fast, and they're going to break every bone in your hands. I'm like, does she remind you of one of the people from Asylum, from American Horror Story, Asylum? She reminded me of like some of them attendants. She's just, something about her just so dark. And then she goes on and, Lois kind of slowed her roll a little bit. And she's like, so yeah, it is what it is. Now go on in there and talk to your husband and this, that. She's just too smart. Like something need to happen to her. Something need to happen to her because she's just too much. She didn't drink her own Kool-Aid. She is really a bit too much. So then once Lois goes, she has some coffee or whatever. Then she ends up going back into the room and she's standing there and old girl's in there doing a sponge bath on the husband. And then we're looking at her. Maybe she got her eyes closed and carrying on. And we look, she ain't sponging, baby. She was jacking, honey. She was over there giving him 1, 2. I said, oh my gosh, honey. She was getting down over there. And I keep wanting to call Lois Niecy, but she was like, oh, cut it out. She stopped her and they get to going back and forth again. She told her, you a predator, this, that thing, and the other, on and on and on. I'm going to move them. She got to tell her, you don't even have the balls to move them. You're scared. This, that thing, and the other. Go ahead and send them somewhere else. Giving her all these bad conditions and all of this and threatening her again, threatening to lock her up again. And she's like, I got all this stuff on you, basically. Not that she's going to lock her up in jail. She's going to lock her up in a padded room. She's building a case against her. And I'm like, she's like, I'm going to move them, whatever. So they have that out. She told her when she got her all up in her head. She's literally working, Lois. Then she told her, she said, well, you do it yourself. There's the soap, sister. There's the soap. You finish him. He didn't climax. You finish him off. And walked away. I said, see, now that's when you should have punched her in the back of her head. That's what because I probably would have punched her in the back of her head. I'd have blasted her, split her right to the white meat. She's doing too much. So anyway, that's that whole thing. I don't even know how she's even dealing with that. That is a complete nightmare. She definitely needs to move her husband from there. She needs to get that. Take care of that. Get him out of there, and then she need to handle her. Don't just take him out, handle her, have her locked up. But anyway, so let's go over here to, we got this nun and Lois. So she's talking with the nun, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, I don't know. I just ain't, things with this nun is just not sitting well with me. She's just too in it. She's too in it. And she's telling Lois, the thing with the killer, he basically, it's like a testimony. He's giving a testimony. He's basically preaching. And then you've got to reach the ecstatic to actually figure it out. So it seems like she has more of an insight than just, she's not giving me Nancy Drew anymore. Now she's kind of giving me like right-hand man type stuff. Like, who sent you, bitch? That's the feeling I'm getting from the nun. Who sent you? Who sent you? Anyway, so then we're introduced to this next person, which is the priest. We see the nun, she's in church. And then they got this priest. The priest with the red pumps. I said, was them like red? These shoes with, I ain't never seen a priest wear no shoes like this. He looked like he's on his way to the club. But I said, okay. He clocking around there. I said, I said, well, he wanted the children, honey, clocking through here having these pumps on. I said, okay. Anyway, he's up there giving his little sermon and carrying on and this, that, thing, and the other. Then I see the eye contact between him and the nun. And they're both young people. So listen, you'll have that. Then the two of them go out to eat. And this is when it got very weird. Because the way he talks just like the nun. And the two of them are like bonding, and they're like eating like regular food. They're out in the restaurant. They all loud in the restaurant, laughing. And, she was just having the time of her life. They was basically on a date. Now, you can call it what you want. They were on a date. I said, okay. And the two of them are both obsessed with serial killers. I felt like she was bonding with someone who has, literally the same interest. She was on a date. Let's just call it what it is. I felt like he was filling her out and picking her for like information, trying to see, can I bend you to do what I want you to do? What can I get out of you? How much will I be able to manipulate you completely? Because she's all in. Her nose is so wide open. She definitely has an attraction to him. I don't know that he so much has an attraction to her, but I think he knows a good use for her. Okay? Weird. This whole thing with them and the website. And I get the whole, they got this thing about the website and bringing people into the church. That's all the business of church. So I said, Ryan, I see you. I see you, Ryan. I see you throwing stones at the church, baby, and the business of the church. As it's all about numbers. Yeah, I said it. The business of the church is about numbers. I said it. And before I take anything away from it, I'll add to it. I promise you. Moving on. So then we end up seeing priest in his own personal time, and I said, I knew it. So he's into leather. The baby's up there in his little chaps and whatnot, sitting there, baby. He's over there spanking his monkey, honey. And then he when he gets done, he punishes himself. He got like a cat of nine tails, and it has like claws, very barbaric, like very going all the way back to the biblical time, the stuff when Jesus was on the cross and they was beating him and carrying on. And so he is literally, I guess, his version of repenting for the whole masturbation situation and his feelings, and he's whacking himself in the back and just ripping his skin. Grotesque. So I said, okay, I see him. He's He indulged in worldly things and then he punished himself. I said, okay. Again, so now I got my eyes on him as well. Don't trust him at all. So then, after that, we actually see Lois and the SWAT team. They actually end up going, they get some tip and they go and they SWAT this house. This guy who was in jail for some things and he ended up getting out and they thinking maybe it's him. So they go and they get into this house. It was all set up. He was dead. He had been dead for a couple weeks. And it was a whole thing set up and there was a crazy ass woman in there with the dead body and she talking all crazy. And this is when I said, now this looked like some cult activity because where's she come from? And she ain't wrapped too tight. And then you got some other stuff. And it was really all set up. Like I said, it was literally like a staged scene. She took this little box from that house and took that home with her. But she ended up meeting up. Lois met up with the nun. And again, she's steadily talking and giving the nun all this stuff. And I'm like, Lois, you're dead drinking. You're doing too much talking to the nun. And the nun has so many red flags to where I wouldn't be talking to her. Now I might still use her as some lead or whatever, but she's just getting too free at the mouth with her. She just, that ain't right. That ain't right. And I think the liquor is playing a part in that. And then it's coming off with a little desperation on top of it. Things haven't even gotten as bad as they're going to. Okay. And also at the house, we know it was set up by the killer because he left a message and the penmanship was like dynamic and he gave himself a name and the name is Grotesquerie. Okay. So he literally is playing a game. He's playing a game. He's having a good time with the cops leading him around. Come on and chase me. It tag. I'm it. He's playing the game. The nun shows up to meet with Lois and they having a chit chat and notice that she has a bruise. She got a bruise. And Lois said, what's that? She said, oh, I fell. I said, okay, pay attention. Pay attention. Then we got the nun sitting there drinking liquor. She drinking, I'm going to try this drink. She drinking liquor. And then her conversation changed because Lois was saying, all along she kept going back to it's all this biblical stuff and it's all this, that, and the other. And he's preaching and it's this, that, and the other. And so when Lois is saying, well, maybe it has something to do with the church. So I noticed in her conversation, she seemed like she's trying to spin it away from the church now, which made my eyebrow rise. I said, see, I don't trust her. Something ain't right with this chick. Something's not right with her. Something's not right. Anyway, so Lois goes home. Now, I tell you, she drives through that area where there's all these homeless people. And there's this one man that she basically does pay attention to. And she always sees him. And occasionally she will give him money and stuff. And she had given him some money that night. And she went on. She stopped, to stop the car. And she slid it out the window, gave him the money. Not they don't talk, but, it's just a human connection. She go on. She talks to her daughter. Her daughter, again, is highly intelligent. She told her, try to open that box. And she's like, no seams, this, that, and the other. No, I can't. There's no open. I don't know. And she went on the bed. Lois sat right there in the living room and she fell asleep. She fell asleep. Then we look around again. Here go the man in the house again. He was in the house again. And I'm like, is she dreaming? Is this a dream sequence? Is he in the house again? Or is she dreaming this? So sure enough, she's laying there, she's sleeping. She ends up getting up. Something startles her. She goes through the house. She gets up. She goes on back to her, because she had music playing. It was her husband's favorite song was playing. She'd been listening to it. And you heard it give, and then she wakes up and she goes around looking and nothing. She sees nothing. She goes in there and she goes to bed. She goes in there Go to bed. And here's the thing: when the man is in the house, looks at the stature of the man with the Amish hat, it looks like the pastor. It looks like the pastor. Um, anyway, a mess. Definitely on to Niecy, Lois. Anyhow, so she ends up being woken up. Again, there's a call. She has to go to the scene. She goes to the scene. It's set up in like this church. It's like an abandoned church or whatever. Go in there and they have all the people. It is a whole scene that's set up. The nun actually shows up. Lois is already there. There's a bunch of people like just sitting around looking in awe of it. They literally have created the whole scene of the Last Supper, and it's done with all of the people that are homeless. But all these homeless people, they've all been killed, and they're all up there with wires and all this stuff. I mean, it was masterful the way that they were done, but it was literally like a living portrait. And the Jesus figure in the middle was the man that Lois has the little connection with. And he had like the thorns and that, and everybody was attached to him through like metal wire. It was, like I said, very masterfully done and absolutely grotesque. Absolutely grotesque and inhumane how it was terrible. But it's getting very personal. Okay, it's getting very personal. So I'm starting to believe that none of these things are really dream sequences. I think this man is really walking around and literally bopping in and out of her house because her daughter don't pay attention to a goddamn thing but ham. So, because she's home. Like, she don't go nowhere. The bride be home, but all she pays attention to is ham. And I'm like, I'm like, at some point, I just got a feeling he's going to get that daughter. And I think that's going to be like the breaker. I might be running ahead of the story, but if he jack her daughter up, honey, and her daughter, she found her daughter, it's going to crack her, child. That's going to crack her. But anyway, I might be running too far ahead. Anyway, so we got all that going on. That's where we actually end. She was pretty much, this part got her pretty bad because she was like, the nun asked her, Lois, where you going? She said, I'm going home and drink. I'm going home and drink. And she walked on off. So this is where we are at the end of episode 2. I'm still engaged. It's really, it really does remind me a lot of Seven, the movie Seven, but just very interesting, very grotesque. So I'm like, yeah, gross crimes, very gross crimes and scenes, and he's a real whack job. Whoever it is a whack job. Anyway, all right, I will catch y'all on the next episode later. Y'all have a good one.